Well, good morning. I am Mario Gangemi, the chair of the MDTA Capital Committee, and conducting this morning's meeting, which I call to order at 9 a.m. In accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is conducted via video conference and live streamed on the MDTA Capital Committee page. As a reminder, all members of the Capital Committee will have their video active during the entirety of the meeting. To minimize background noise during the call, I do ask that anyone on the line mute your phones or computers. Anyone who is presenting or answering a question, we do ask that you have your video and audio both on, and when done, you turn your video off and your audio back on mute. Today, there are no members of the public, no elected officials, and no media that have pre-registered to comment. So we can move on to agenda item number 1, which is approval of the open session meeting minutes of June 6, 2024.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second, moved by member Cox, second by member Gaines. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that you also, Mr. Sneed? I see you, or don't see you.
Yes, I'll be on
Awesome.
in a moment.
Got it. All right, so member Sneed. So we got us all. So now we can move on to our next, which is Andrew for contract FT 3020-0000R area-wide rehab of FMT lighting. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Andrew Layman. I'm an engineer at the, good morning. I'm an electrical engineer in the ITS Electric Group at OEC, and I'm here to present project FT 3020-0000R area-wide rehab of FMT lighting. This contract is funded 100% with toll revenues. The work to be performed under this contract is located at the Fort McHenry Tunnel, Interstate 95 between the Joe Avenue overpass and the I-895 interchange, and includes the I-395 to MLK Jr. Boulevard and the ramps connecting I-95 and I-395. This will not include the tunnels. The lighting upgrades will consist of replacing existing underpass, low level, and sign lighting with LED, as well as replacing existing circuits feeding those lights and any related junction box covers that are damaged or missing through the corridor. This contract is being procured using the invitation for bids capital construction method, typical low bid construction project. There are 3 allowances. These are $8,000 for partnering, $350,000 for miscellaneous work, and $75,000 for railroad insurance, permitting, and safety training. The engineer's estimate for this contract was $10,065,705.68. This was advertised on February 15th of this year, and bids were received on May 1st of this year. 6 bids in total, with 3 of them over the estimate and 3 of them under the estimate, wherein Aldridge Electric had the lowest bid. Their bid was $9,406,077.59. This was 6% below the engineer's estimate. There was no bid protest or rejection, and no justification was needed. MBE goal for this project is 24%, with sub-goals of 8% African American and 11% women-owned. The VSB goal is 1%. Aldridge Electric exceeds this with their MBE plan, where they have 27.28% total, 18.19% women-owned, 9.09% African-American owned, and 1.06% VSBE. Aldridge Electric has worked on various government projects with a focus on ITS and electrical work, including our own automatic lane closure system, where they have been a successful partner. The NTP is anticipated in September of this year, and the contract duration is 730 days for construction, or 2 years, making the construction completion in September of 2026. We are seeking contingent recommended approval from the Capital Committee to present this contract to the full MDTA board in anticipation of approval for contract award.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions from the committee? or a motion for approval?
I'll make a
Member
motion to
Sneed,
approve.
motion for approval. Second.
I think
Member Sneed.
Mr. Sneed got the motions, or a second?
I'll second.
Member Gaines gets the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that was all of us. So thank you, Andrew.
Sure, thank you.
I think we now have contract KH 3020-000. Fees is on. I-95 Express Toll Lanes, northbound extension, southbound Maryland 24 to Bynum Run.
Good
Floor is
morning,
yours.
everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, this is contract number KH 3020, I-95 Express Toll Lanes, northbound extension from south of Maryland 24 to Bynum Run. The work under this contract is located along I-95, just north of the Maryland 24 interchange at Haha Branch to Bynum Run in Harford County. The scope of work includes the installation of 2 express toll lanes and 3 general purpose lanes for I-95 northbound from the end of the upcoming contract KH 3021, which is the Maryland 24 interchange replacement, and ultimately transition into 3 general purpose lanes at the end of the project limits. This project was advertised on February 23rd of this year, and we took bids. I believe it was like around March 24th. The anticipated notice to proceed, it looks more like, well, there's a type whether it's not August 23, but it looks more like September of this year will be more realistic than August. And the duration is 2 years. So we're looking for a completion date of around September 1st of 2026. This project is funded 100% by toll revenue. We received 4 bids on this contract, with DXI Construction being the low bidder. Their bid was 1% higher than the engineer's estimate. The engineer's estimate was $50,599,317, and their bid was $50,913,995. Like I said, that was 1% above the engineer's estimate, and therefore no bid justification was needed. The MBE goal set for this contract was 24% overall, with 8% African American and 11% women-owned businesses, and 1.5% VSBE. The low bidder, DXI, slightly exceeded all the overall sub-goal, as well as the overall goal and the sub-goals. They submitted a 24.09% MBE plan with 9.52% for African American and 12.31% for women-owned and 1.53% VSBE goal. DXI actually is the former Dixie construction company, and they've done work on the ETLs before. They've done some work on Section 100, and they did a good job, and therefore we do recommend moving forward with awarding this contract to them. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Obviously, the first 3 bids were very close. I mean, it was, I'm amazed that they were that close, and the first 2 obviously very, very close. And there was no protest at this point?
No, there was no bid protest, no.
Good. I mean, I'm very familiar with DXI, and they're a local Harford County company,
Yes.
and glad they got their being awarded. I make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I have a
Member Cox
question,
makes the motion. Go ahead. Go ahead and make a second first.
Okay.
All right. Member Gaines makes a second. Now we'll
Okay.
go ahead and Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, this is a pretty big contract. Have they done anything near this size for us or for anybody? I'm sure they haven't done it for anybody else.
I'm sorry, what was that? I didn't.
I mean,
They-
$50 million contract is substantial.
Yeah.
Have they done anything near this size?
They submitted their experience questionnaire. I didn't see it close, but not that big, no. But obviously they
How
must
many
have,
jobs this size?
yeah, close, but yeah, when they submitted like about 3 or 4 pages of contracts that they've been involved in. I didn't see any of that size, but then they have a good subs. They have like 6M is doing the noise. There's a noise wall in this project. 6M is doing that for him. Gray and Son are doing the paving for him. So it's a good team. It's not just them by themselves. It's a good, it's a very, very good team altogether.
Got it. Okay.
Very good.
Any,
And really,
any
they're not
further-
even 1% above engineer's estimate. They're like more like 0.6 of 1%.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's definitely a good bid and a good estimate.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. That is all of us. I guess we should, again, Nafiz mentioned it, but the anticipated notice to proceed is misprinted as August of
Yes.
2023. That should be September of 2024. So
Yes.
I know that that'll be corrected by the board meeting.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we now have Richard to talk to us about resolution 24-04, a resolution authorizing an official to take actions on behalf of the Maryland Transportation Authority. Richard, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, member. John Jemmy. Listen, thank you. Good morning. My name is Rich Armo, COO. I'm here to respectfully seek Capital Committee approval on MDTA Resolution 2404 Delegated Authority for Continuity of Operations Plan, or the COOP plan. The COOP plan is prepared to develop, implement, and maintain a viable COOP capability. Ensures that MDTA can continue to execute primary mission essential functions and comply with the statutory requirements of the Maryland State Constitution, Maryland Annotated Code, and executive orders. The MDTA COOP plan complies with Public Safety Article 14116 and Executive Order 0101/2009-05, and is in the guidance of the federal government. The COOP plan is annually reviewed. It was approved by the MDTA board last on July 27, 2017. It is updated and reviewed annually. In this, we're going to update the job positions in this specific revision, removing the deputy executive director and adding the chief engineer. The framework and guidance of the operations is to enable, again, continuity and rapidly restore the organization's essential functions in the event of a disruption to normal operations. It'll define the roles and responsibilities of staff, outline the orders of succession, notification procedures, communication methods, and provisions for alternate work locations. And it plans for maintaining and restoring access to vital records. Again, this MDTA Resolution 2404 delegates authority to conduct such government functions and approvals to the executive director, and authorizes the executive director, or during the absence or inability of the executive director, he may designate the chief of operations, chief administrative officer, chief financial officer, chief engineer, or chief of police as the authorized officer to discharge or direct the discharge of the executive function of MDTA staff and employees, and to perform the necessary activities of the MDTA, including the operation and maintenance of its projects during all weather traffic conditions, traffic, accidents, and other emergencies, both major and minor, on behalf of the MDTA. The authorized officer is hereby authorized to take such actions as may be required to continue the business operations of the MDTA. We're here to respectfully request approval of MDTA Resolution 2404. Any questions?
Go ahead,
Chairman.
Member Cox.
Thank you, Richard. Very good. I'm sure that Kim has reviewed this in its entirety.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good.
Yes, sir.
And I'm guessing from what you said, this is a cleanup. We don't have the deputy executive director position, so we needed to put somebody else in that role.
That's correct. This was, again, this was approved by the MDTA board in 2017. At that time, we did have a deputy executive director. We do no longer have that, as well as during that time, the chief engineer has been moved out separately from underneath operations. So we're allotting that authorization as well.
Yep, makes sense. Any further discussion or motion and a second?
I'll move it.
I'll move out
Member Cox-
second.
Member Gaines second. Member Cox moves. Member Gaines seconds. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, Richard, you're off the hook. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Have a great day. All right, well, Jason, gonna give us an education as we get ready to eventually look at responses to the key bridge replacement. So Jason, educate us.
I'll do my best. And good morning, board members. Thank you for having me. Do we want me to share the slideshow presentation, or is there someone on the call who's going to be sharing that visual?
We all have it.
Okay. So we're not going to be, all right, understood. All right, well, thank you and good morning again. For the record, my name is Jason Stitely and I'm the highway manager at MDTA. Prior to my career at MDTA, I was involved in the alternative project delivery group at State Highway and led multiple alternative delivery projects, programs, and procurements. This presentation will provide a summary of the typically utilized project delivery methods and how we're going to leverage them on the key bridge rebuild. So moving on to slide 2. Just before we jump into a discussion of the specific deliveries, we're going to give a quick overview of the 3 separate procurements that we have either planned or upcoming to support the key bridge rebuild program. They consist of a progressive design build contract for which the MDTA has received proposals and upcoming procurements for GEC, General Engineering Consultant, and Construction Management and Inspection, or CMI, services. The PDB will, if everything is executed well, be the entity that is the design and construction element who is building the replacement structure. The GEC and CMI will provide owner support, providing oversight, program support, and review of the progressive design build team's work product and materials and construction effort, respectively. Moving on to slide 3, we're going to, in order to talk about alternates, we have to first sort of touch base on the most conventional procurement method, which is design bid build. Design bid build involves the owner or the owner's architect and engineer providing a complete set of plans, specifications, and estimates. The complete plans are then bid out to contractors who are selected on the basis of lowest responsible bid. On the plus side of this procurement method, it provides a straightforward process that is familiar to owners, engineers, and contractors. And on the other side, bid build is typically known for a higher risk of cost growth during construction, and the construction cost certainty is not achieved until very late in the overall project development process. Moving on to slide 4. One of the other elements of design bid build is that it requires the owner to hold 2 separate contracts with the designer record and the contractor, and the owner typically serves as the intermediary between those 2 parties. Through this setup, the owner impliedly warrants information, plans, and specifications provided to that general contractor, and the contractor is not liable to the owner for the loss or damage which results solely from insufficiencies or defects in the information, plans, and specifications. Essentially, the contractor expects that the design package that they were bid out is buildable and it will achieve the intended outcome that the owner put together. This can result in a potentially adversarial relationship during construction. The contractor is entitled to seek additional compensation for ambiguity and inconsistencies, while the designer is held to a reasonable standard of care, and they seek to minimize their professional liability risk. As a result, the owner typically is responsible for most cost growth during construction. Moving on to slide 5, a method that attempts to cure some of the potential issues that exist in design bid build is construction management at risk, which we're currently utilizing on the key bridge redecking process. With CMAR for short, is a contracting method where the owner procures professional services of a contractor during the design development phase. The contractor is typically selected through a competitive sealed procurement that typically values technical qualifications over eventual cost. This process allows the contractor to provide constructability input during design development and gives them the opportunity to influence the design to best suit their construction capabilities, equipment, and crews. In return, the contractor is accepting the risk for reasonable interpretation of discrepancies within the plans. Additionally, the GMP, which is guaranteed maximum price process, provides the owner a greater cost certainty for construction and typically provides the contractor with an incentive to minimize construction expenses. As we can see from the visual, that CMAR procurement happens early in the preliminary design process. That CMAR contractor is engaged through the project development, the design phase, and typically we're able to go out and reach an agreement on cost prior to the plans being 100% complete. If the contractor and owner are not able to agree on a GMP, the owner has the right to sever the contract and to deliver the work under a separate procurement, with that contractor typically not being allowed to bid on the subsequent procurement. Moving on to slide 6.
Jason, real quick,
yes.
just sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I just want to make
No.
sure that the group understands what you just said. This isn't the method that we're necessarily going, but in this case, you've got a separate design team and you've got a separate construction team, but the construction team is bought in before final documents to, one, weigh in on the design, and two, to actually help put pricing based on the preliminary design.
Yes, and for heavily technical projects where qualifications are very important of the contractor, very important, and their means and method and understanding how they are going to build the job, it may influence how you might permit the project or what approvals you might receive from the agencies. Their value during the pre-construction process is really important. But as we see on slide 6, this is still a 2 separate contract with the CMAR contractor and the designer of record having a separate contractual relationships with the owner, although they are liaising during the design process.
Right.
So there is still an element of that implied warranty, and there is still a liability gap between the two parties.
Yep, no, understood. I just wanted, before we moved on, Member Cox has a further question.
Let me, I know you're going to get through the whole presentation. Are the feds buying into this project at this point? This method, let's put it that way.
Construction management at risk?
What you're presenting to us at this point, are they buying into?
Yes, the feds have participated in all of these types of alternative procurements.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
No. I'm happy to address questions as we go.
Thank you.
As we said on slide 6, the contracting tree looks similar to design bid build with that additional coordination line between the designer record and the CMAR contractor. The owner still has to manage both of those contracts, procure those separately, and there is, while you are getting some coverage from a GMP, it is not that full design warranty. Moving on to slide 7, design build, which is a method that is similar to CMAR in that it brings a contractor into the design development prior to final design. And the design builder is typically selected based on a competitive sealed procurement that evaluates team capabilities, project approach, and construction cost. Through this agreement, the design builder is providing final design, permitting, and construction services for a stipulated price. The owner needs to provide significant information, field surveys, subsurface exploration, environmental studies, et cetera, to the proposing teams to allow them to provide responsible bids with reasonable contingencies. And you can see that the construction cost here is established after that design build procurement occurs, but before the final design is complete. It also allows elements of construction that can be advanced from a design perspective and a permitting perspective to be pushed earlier in the overall process, and typically allows construction to begin earlier than it would under a linear design bid build process. For the owner, the major advantage, and we're moving on to slide 8, of design build is that it places the design and construction responsibility with a single entity, typically with a contractor or construction JV, as the contract holder, and the designer of record as a subcontractor to that contract, to the prime. This places responsibility for defects or ambiguities in the design solely with the design build entity and limits the owner's exposure to cost growth during the construction phase. Over the past 2 decades, design build has been utilized to deliver some of the largest and most technically complex DOT projects. However, as the size of mega projects have grown, the contractor appetite for this significant risk transfer has diminished. In the past decade, a modified form of design build contracting has become more common, combining elements of CMAR and design build, called progressive design build. Moving on to slide 9. Progressive design build is still design build contracting, but it takes the approach of CMAR in bringing that contractor in early in the process. So progressive design build, or PDB, takes the early contractor contribution and delayed establishment of final construction price from CMAR, and incorporates it into the design build contractual setup. The progressive design builder provides preliminary design, potentially including design to support a NEPA decision, final design, and construction services. By allowing the contractor to be involved throughout the duration of the contract, it allows them to have a much better understanding of the project's risk profile prior to establishing a final cost. I'll pause here if there's any questions about sort of this setup, and then we'll go into more how it's being applied to Key Bridge.
Anybody have any questions or see clarification?
So for scope modifications during the CMAR, member Steve here, for scope modifications during the CMAR process, let me try to ask this clearly. If there are elements of scope to be added with CMAR, those elements can be added as the design is progressing. Is that correct?
In CMAR, the owner controls the design. So we would have the ability to say we're going to either add these scope elements, or we want to take this approach to a certain portion of the design. And ultimately, that may increase the contractor's cost, or the cost to perform a certain method in a certain way. But it is still the owner who is in complete control of the design, as they have that direct contract with the designer of record.
Okay, so if there's, say, oh, we need bigger dolphins here, or we need more lighting here, or I want the lanes a little wider, those things we can change, but it'll increase the overall cost of the project.
Whatever the price delta is will be reflected in the contractor's estimate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So it looks like on this design, you're gonna have a final price before you begin construction. Am I reading this diagram correctly?
Yeah, and we'll get into how it's applying
Okay.
specifically to the Key Bridge, but we are seeking to reach a guaranteed maximum price for the overall project at approximately 50% design completion, which would be more design completion than we would typically have on a standard design build procurement. So our goal is to have a higher level of understanding, but still advance it such that we can get into construction as early as practical.
Right.
So moving on to slide 10, reasons to select progressive design build. So why would we choose progressive design build? Progressive design build procurement process is streamlined into a one-step procurement, eliminating the need for creating a short list or a reduced candidate list. The initial scope is deliberately broad, which allows the owner and the progressive design build team to collaboratively find cost-effective solutions, similar to a planning or preliminary engineering contract. The project design benefits from a single designer of record throughout the duration of the contract, which is especially important on highly technical projects, specifically for a key bridge. It would be almost impossible to get a designer to accept the liability of that main span. The contractor is also allowed to provide input on commercial terms like bonding, insurance, and liability, balancing risk and optimizing cost. And if a mutually agreeable construction price cannot be established, the owner can end the contract with the contractor while maintaining access to that progressive design builder. And then if that happens, we would be able to procure under a different means. In the case of Key Bridge, the lack of field information in the early state of the planning process were primary drivers of the selection for progressive design build. Moving on to slide 11, we're looking at sort of the Key Bridge progressive design build approach. At this time, a National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, documented categorical exclusion is being prepared with Federal Highway as the lead agency and MDTA in cooperation with State Highway Administration as the lead state agency. NEPA is anticipated to be complete this summer. In addition, Federal Highway and MDTA are working closely with both state and federal permitting agencies to ensure that permits are obtained in order to meet the aggressive rebuild schedule. This procurement will select a highly qualified team through a single-step procurement to provide initial project development services that will determine the project scope and requirements in collaboration with MDTA. The phase 1 portion of the contract, and it's separated into a phase 1 and a phase 2, consists of professional services and operates similarly to an open-ended A&E services contract. So at this point, we are only agreeing to the professional services component of the contract and utilizing that contractual authority to establish the scope of phase 2 and hopefully reach a mutually agreeable guaranteed maximum price. As it applies to Key Bridge, phase 1 of the progressive design build contract will consist of 2 phases, phase 1A and 1B. During phase 1A, MDTA and the design builder will establish the overall project scope, project limits, design criteria, and preliminary schedule. Develop the opinion of probable cost for the project, and develop work orders to proceed with phase 1B. 1A will include activities such as field surveys, data collection, subsurface exploration, public outreach, concept development, and engineering to demonstrate that the selected concept is feasible. Phase 1B will include the work package development phase, which requires the design builder to advance the proof of concept work to a level that will both enable the design builder and MDTA to develop a GMP proposal for the phase 2 packages. This work will include detailed engineering, constructability, cost modeling, and detailed plan development. We anticipate seeking this guaranteed maximum price at approximately 50% design completion. And upon completion of phase 1, the progressive design builder will have the exclusive negotiating rights for phase 2 services through the guaranteed maximum price or GMP process. If a GMP is not successfully agreed upon, the progressive design builder loses the right to construct the project, and MDTA will deliver the work under a separate contracting mechanism, such as a separate design build or CMARC procurement. Moving on to phase 12.
Jason, real quick. When they bring in their guaranteed maximum price, that comes after there's a design that's essentially final?
So there's a price reconciliation process where we're able to submit GMPs a maximum of 3 times, but they're working through setting up estimate formats and getting their prices and work approach established throughout that phase 1A and 1B so that we are comparing apples to apples and looking at real costs once it comes to that GMP process. But yes, they have that opportunity to try and reconcile price 3 times at approximately that 50%.
So theoretically, we shouldn't have a problem. Theoretically.
Unless we do not feel that there is it would depend on how far off the price to construct the project is from our either budget or anticipated cost. But we also have the ability to work with them through that phase 1 to actively monitor the cost and make informed decisions in order to bring the scope into that budget range.
Let me ask the question a different way. We're working with contractor. We're going through this process. We get to the point where we're like, this number is not going to work. Where are the plans when that happens? What are the condition of the plans? Are they essentially final and they could be put out to bid at that point, or is there going to be another length of time to finalize those plans?
Should be pretty caveat by saying, obviously, we hope this is not the case. But they would still be in a development stage. So what I would anticipate doing, and there's lots of approvals in between what I would want to do and what we'd actually end up doing. But I would see this working well for either a design build procurement that would directly follow based on work in progress documents, where we would have a second team come in and take on that design to completion based on a higher level of project understanding, or you have a CMAR procurement that would bring on a contractor to work with us on getting early work packages identified and approved, as well as getting their full understanding of the design risk profile and how they're going to proceed with the work.
The reason why I bring it up is I know that the 896 I-95 project in Delaware, literally just inside the Delaware line, it went through this similar process.
Yes.
And ended up having to go out to bid. Now, they did not disqualify the team who they had been working with, and actually that team ended up getting the job. But I know that it caused a delay as a result. And obviously, they could afford that there because there's already an existing road. It wasn't like it wasn't there. We don't have that. We don't have that ability. We need it up yesterday. So that's why I asked the question. I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench in. I'm just.
No, and we will be contingency planning as we get closer to that that portion of the project development. Obviously, the goal is for us to reconcile price and have that be the consistent worker throughout. But in order for us to start the work as early as possible, we have to have, it will cost us upfront if we were to force proposers to commit to a full construction cost with the level of information that we'd be able to furnish them at this point.
No, I understand. And it sounds like we're going to have some check-ins and a lot of side-by-side stuff. So theoretically, it shouldn't happen. So I don't know exactly what happened on that particular project. Candidly, I've talked to both sides and I got this. So surprise, right? So anyway, just we look forward.
No, and it is going to be the goal is to be constantly working with each other throughout that early. It's not that they're going to go in a corner and then give us a design.
Yeah.
We have to be partners at the table because we have to be making decisions and working to bring. We both know that we have to connect this road to this road. How do we do that for a price that we can live with?
As we're working through this process, and obviously the MDTA is going to be shoulder to shoulder with that team. Is Federal Highway going to be shoulder to shoulder with us as well, and State Highway?
So we're working closely with Federal Highway and State Highway. We're understanding that they are going to be providing resources directly to the project, and our goal is to minimize contemplation time and but also providing authoritative decisions as we go through the
Right.
process.
Yeah, good. I had a feeling that was the case, but I wanted to ask the question. Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to slide 11, the phase 2 approach. Assuming we can reach an agreeable GMP, there will not be a separate procurement for phase 2 services. Once the GMP is negotiated, phase 2 of the progressive design build will commence and will function similarly to a traditional design build agreement. This effort will involve finalizing design, developing the various work packages, and then construction. The agreement structure will allow for construction to begin prior to the entirety of the design being complete. And during this phase, separate outreach will occur with construction contractors and disadvantaged business enterprises as work packages are developed, providing additional opportunities for those firms to participate in the eventual construction of the bridge. And once we're done with that, hopefully we have a project that is an aesthetically pleasing landmark for Baltimore. So I thank you very much for your time. I do apologize for being long-winded, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't think you were long-winded at all, so thank you.
No, I don't either. Where are we as far as, I mean, projection was sometime this month of trying to select someone to move forward. Is that true or not true?
We have received proposals, and I know we're working towards a commitment of mid to late summer to be able to publicize that decision.
So you think you're coming to us in about a month to the Capital Committee? Or sooner? I mean, obviously, if we can make a decision sooner, we have to call a special meeting. That's probably.
Well, if you could let them say August, that would probably be good.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we're all anxious to get, to get rolling. So it's too important for the, not just for the Baltimore economy, but for the state economy and the regional economy.
No, and we're going to be working closely to see if there's a need for an ad hoc meeting in order to accelerate that, as well as if we need to have the full board off cycle. We're going to work with leadership to make sure that we're not allowing time to slip for procedural issues.
We can get member Cox to come off his vacation to Fiji.
I'm right here, boss.
I had two questions. First of all, this job going to be bonded? I guess it will be, right?
Thank
you.
What
complications does this contracting method bring to the bonding table?
So we requested that proposers demonstrate the ability to furnish a $500 million bond, understanding that the overall cost exceeds that, but given the unique nature of the contract, we don't want to hold up somebody's bond artificially, and it's likely going to be a non-standard bonding agreement as we move towards that phase 2 portion of the project.
And that was one of the things that you were going to be discussing at the preliminary stage anyway, so I did see that in your comments. Yeah, I remember, Gaines, I had that same question. So I'm thinking, geez, who's going to get a $1.7 billion?
Who's going to bond that? And then they couldn't do any other work probably too, because the bonding limit would be gone.
Right.
The other thing was, what's the story on the removal of the rest of the bridge? Is that going to be a separate contract we're letting, or?
So we've communicated with proposers that it is our desire to remove the existing standing structure as early as practicable as an early work package in this contract. So we would allow us to agree to a price for that work and issue that work. Obviously, we're not the only people who have the go, no-go decision there. So we need our environmental buy-in, federal highway buy-in. A lot of this is hinging on that NEPA determination before we can start putting shovels in the ground to affect the condition that's out there.
We want to get that out of the way before we start the main,
the
new bridge there, so you don't want to have holdups there.
I guess to follow up on that, Lee, obviously that process is ongoing at this point as far as trying to get the NEPA approval.
Yes, we have separate teams working on that.
Got it.
Well, Jason, thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
I think candidly, we should probably have a few
Thank you.
minutes even if we don't have a contract to discuss, just kind of give us an update. It's something that's on all of our minds. So
yeah, appreciate your time, and
not that it's not on all of your minds too, but we appreciate your time, and this was extremely helpful. So thank you very much, and you do sound like you know what you're talking about. So good work.
Yes, thanks.
yeah, thank you, appreciate it. I
So we
very
say
much
the same
enjoy
thing in
this.
4 years, right?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, any other questions for Jason? I do want to thank Mr. Gartner for coming in on his vacation and hanging with us for a little while. So, any further discussion from anybody or a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Member Gaines.
Second.
Second by Member Sneed. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That
Good to
is
see you all.
everybody. Everybody stay as cool as